Don't let building permits scare you or stop you from building the shed that you actually need and that you actually want. Whether it's for just extra storage, a home office, a studio, music studio maybe, art studio, or in my case, a 12 by 20 home gym, sheds are an awesome way to add value and extra space to your property. Now, unfortunately, you can't just go throwing sheds up willy-nilly on your property. There are some restrictions and permits and considerations that you need to go through in the planning phase before you can actually build or buy your shed. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through my process for planning permits and restrictions and any other necessary preparations before you build your shed. Roll the intro. What's up guys, I'm Cody from Backyard Shreds. I help people build epic home gym sheds like the one that I'm in their own backyard. And today we're making a video that is not very exciting, just gonna be honest with you. It's kind of boring, it's kind of tedious. It's the stuff that everyone's scared of and no one wants to talk about. It's the not glorious part of building a shed, which is building permits and zoning permits and restrictions and regulations and all the red tape that you have to jump through just to build something on your own property.
Not to worry, I have a permit.
This just says I can do what I want.
Because yes, even in the land of the free, you can't just go build something on your own property. The government has to tell you what to do. And honestly, this stuff scared me probably the most when I was first planning my shed build. It really confused me and stressed me out, and I don't want that for you. I want to make this as simple as possible. So I'm going to try and break down this planning process, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have more confidence and clarity on the steps you need to take to get to having an awesome shed. Now, the tricky part is there are often overlapping sets of rules or jurisdictions that govern what you can do on your property. And I like to think of it like a ripple, right? So imagine you throw a rock into a pond and you see a ripple form from where you threw that rock. And it starts with a smaller circle and it moves out from there. So in your planning process, that's what we're gonna do together. So we're gonna start small and we're gonna look at any restrictions or regulations at the smallest, most local circle of authority or governance, and then we'll move out from there. So typically that's gonna be an HOA. If you live in a neighborhood with an HOA, they often have rules and regulations about whether or not you can even have a shed on your property. And if you can, they actually have rules about how many sheds you can have, where on your property they can be, like the front yard versus the backyard, etc. What size those sheds are allowed to be, maybe even colors and things like that, that maybe they have to be painted to match the house. There's all sorts of rules out there, but if you live in an HOA, you're gonna want to check there first. Here's a quick little list of ways to find that information. First of all, you can ask your neighbors. If they've been there longer than you, or maybe they just pay attention to those things, there's a good chance that they may already know. Also, check the documents that your house came with, the deed to your house. When you signed all the paperwork and you bought your house, you should have some kind of paperwork from the HOA about the rules and regulations for the neighborhood that you live in. If your HOA has a website, which many or most of them do, you can go online and look for those bylaws or rules and regulations. They may also be called covenants and conditions and regulations, CCRs. So look for some of those terminologies on the website or in the documents that you're looking for to find those restrictions. And you know, if all else fails, if you can find a phone number to call somebody on the board of your HOA or whoever the property management company is that runs that neighborhood, if you can find a phone number and just ask, I'm sure that they'll be able to either give you the information you need or point you to the right place. If you're not in an HOA, the next larger circle in that ripple is going to be the town or city if you live within city limits or town limits. And that comes down to zoning permits. That's right. Even if you don't need a building permit, you're still probably going to need what's called a zoning permit. And the zoning permit comes from a different office, which is usually like the Planning and Zoning Commission for your city.
I am the director of the Parks Department, and this is a park.
or if you're outside city limits, it's gonna come from probably the county clerk's office. Again, it's some kind of zoning planning committee. It's maybe called something slightly different where you're at. They're the ones that tell you where on your property you can build it, how far off the property line it needs to be, what size it needs to be, drainage, anything like that. They're gonna tell you all of those restrictions for your property. And the best way to find this information is to just go on good old Google, type in shed zoning permit, and then your town or your county and state. Let's say you live in Anderson Township, Ohio. I have some friends over there. You're gonna type in Anderson Township, Ohio, zoning permit, and see what comes up. The website that you find may tell you the information you need, but unfortunately, those government websites are not always the most user-friendly. So your best bet, in my opinion, is again to just find a phone number, call somebody in the office. Basically, just tell them what you're trying to do. Hey, I'm so-and-so, I live on such and such address, and I'm wanting to build a shed on my property. Here's the size I'm thinking about. Here's where I'd like to put it. What do I need to do to get approved to do that? Because even if you don't need a building permit, you will need a zoning permit. And if you do need a building permit, you will definitely have to have a zoning permit first. The fees vary depending on where you're at, but there will be a fee attached to that permit process. In my case, it was like 30 bucks, I wanna say. So in my case, it was a pretty simple process. I had to fill out a form and tell them kind of all the details of where I wanted to put my shed, what the shed size was, and when approximately I was gonna do that. I did have to submit an aerial photograph of my property with some kind of diagram showing exactly where that shed was going to be and some measurements with the offsets from the property lines. I just took a screenshot of Google Maps and I drew some lines showing the property line, drew like a little square for the shed, and I drew some arrows and numbers showing the offsets and distances with the property line and how far away from the house, all those fun little details. So depending on the size of your shed, you may only need a zoning permit, but you may also need a building permit. The limit for what size shed you can build without a permit varies greatly depending on where you live. And again, it's going to be governed by the smallest local authority moving outward. If you live in a city or town limits, it's gonna be governed by them. And if you live outside city limits, it's probably gonna be dictated by your county or state, probably just county. Probably the most common size shed that you can build without a permit is 120 square feet. That's the number that in all of my Google searching seems to be the most common. And so that would be something like a 10 by 12, which is, you know, kind of small, honestly. If you're planning on doing something other than just a home office or just a garden shed, 10 by 12 is pretty tiny. So if you want more space, you may need to get a building permit. Now, in the county that I live in, that limit goes all the way up to 200 square feet. So that gives you a lot more options. You could do, let's see, a 10 by 20 shed. You could do a 12 by 16 shed, which would be 194, right? Bad at public math. It's gonna be just under 200 square feet. You could also do a 14 by 14 square footprint as well. And all of that would be under that 200 square foot limit. You wouldn't need a building permit for that. If you get over that limit, you will need a building permit. I know that sounds scary, but listen, don't let building permits scare you or stop you from building the shed that you actually need and that you actually want. I'm gonna talk you through the process, and I've got a free gift for you over on the website, backyardshreds.com. I've got a free download that is got a lot of the same information in this video, but it's just packaged in a PDF, and it's got a little discount on our building plans that we have at Backyard Shreds. It's gonna walk you through the whole building permit process. You can go check it out. I've linked it in the description below. So in my case, I built a 12 by 20 shed, which puts me over that 200 square foot limit. So I did have to get a building permit for my shed. This is more or less what that process looks like. Number one, you got to get a zoning permit first. Once you get that zoning permit approved that you can put a shed on your property, then you take that to the building permit people. Number two, you're gonna have to have some kind of drawn plans. Probably not super detailed construction, but you at least need to know what the details of the construction are going to be. And in my case, at least, you had to submit a floor plan showing the layout of the shed, the size and dimensions of the footprint of the shed, and where the doors and windows were all going to be. You'll also need to fill out a form for that building permit, which has all of the details about the construction of that shed. The type of information they're looking for and that they ask for on that form is listed on that free permit guide that I have on the website for you. It's things like who's going to build it, what's the dimensions, the height, the floor plan, doors and windows, sizes and locations of those doors and windows, the foundation as well. Is it going to be on a pad? Is it going to be on concrete piers? Is it going to be on crushed stone or block? What kind of anchoring or uplift protection does it have? The floor framing, so the spacing and the sizing of your floor joists, the spans and the supports of those joists, the walls and how those are framed, how far apart, what size lumber, all that kind of stuff. Siding and sheathing you have on it, your roof framing, your roof material, is it metal, is it shingle, etc. So you're gonna fill out all of that information on the form. If you have questions along the way, I do recommend just calling the people at the building department about that form and about the process. That's what I did, and they're just real people over there, and they're really helpful. Obviously, you have to know what you're doing or have plans to build the thing, and they're not just gonna tell you how to build it, but they will be very helpful in specifying what kinds of information they need and how the form process works. So once you submit that form, again, there's gonna be a fee for that, probably around 30 bucks. I think that's what it was for me. There's like a $20, $30 fee for submitting the application and getting that permit in the first place. And then there was an inspection fee added to that once I actually got it inspected. You're gonna get your permit. Hopefully the permit gets approved. They send you that building permit. You're good to go and start building. One thing to note here is that you have to have that building permit posted somewhere on your construction site for the duration of your construction until you get that final inspection approval and you're good to go. Technically, it could happen, and it may happen to you, that someone from the county or the city could drive by and they could come ask for your building permit and come inspect your construction site at any point in time to make sure that you have a permit for your construction. So don't get caught red-handed without your building permit available and posted on your construction site while you're working. Also, I think most of the time there is some kind of a deadline, so you can't just have a construction project enduring indefinitely. You have to finish it within, I think for me it was 6 months, and that should be plenty of time, especially if you're following a good set of plans like the ones that we have over on the website, backyardshreds.com. I think they're the best, easiest to follow building plans on the internet, in my opinion, and I've looked at a lot of them. Another really important tip here is that you cannot make adjustments to your plans after you get your building permit approved. The inspector, when he comes, is going to not just be looking to make sure that things are built to code, he's going to be looking to make sure that what you built matches the plans that you submitted. So if you decided halfway through that you're going to add a door or add a window, that probably is going to be a problem when you come to your final inspection. So be sure to get all of that figured out before you start the permit process and before you start building. So that final step is getting the building inspection. Basically, once you finish your construction within that 6-month window or whatever the timeline is that they give you, you're going to call, schedule an inspection. The inspector is going to come out, walk through the building, check to make sure that it matches the plans, check to make sure that it meets all the structural codes for your area. Hopefully, if you've done your homework well with this video and our permit guide and some good set of plans, you should be good to go, and he will give you the stamp of approval. Now, even if the building inspector comes and tells you that you need to make changes, typically he'll walk through, he'll point out things that he's concerned about or that don't match the plans. He may tell you to change certain things, and then you'll have to basically reschedule a new inspection to come back, and he'll inspect the things that you fixed. But hopefully that won't happen to you, and you'll cruise right through and be good to go. So there you go. Shed Permits 101. I hope you feel more equipped, more confident, and prepared to figure this stuff out for yourself, and that you're one step closer to actually having an amazing shed on your property. I have learned a ton in this process of building my own and helping other people build gym sheds on their property. And so if you have any questions about the building permit process that we talked about here, my shed, or just building sheds in general in the construction process, I'd love to hear your questions in the comments below. hit me up and I will be happy to help however I can. Again, I've got that free gift for you, the building permit guide on our website, backyardshreds.com. It's linked in the description below. As always, thank you for watching the video. If this has helped you, would you mind liking this video? It really does go a long way for the algorithm and it helps more people see the video. And if you'd like more of this content, hit subscribe and you can follow along, and I'll see you in the next video. Just obnoxious.